No, it's still on mute. There we go. No, we're good. Brad, are you able to hear us?
Yes, fine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So we're ready to call the meeting to order, the regular board meeting of the Board of Directors of Marina Coast Water. Hold on a moment. We're getting one more board meeting. This way. I can't even open her to tell her. Roller skates. That's all we do is there's a tape piece of plastic. It's.
Yeah, it's encapsulated because they're doing work on the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
I apologize. Tried to catch you. It's okay, but remember I can't hear. Yeah, I know. But I quit the door. I can't get out of it. So. You're all good. Oh, that's sweet.
Just in case there wasn't. Remember the last time there wasn't. Okay.
All right, happy fall, everybody.
Happy fall. This is where my orange. First year fall. My favorite season.
Right. Okay, so we are going to call the regular board meeting of the Board of Directors for Marina Coast Water District and for the Marina Coast Water District Groundwater Sustainability Agency meeting to order. And we'll take a roll call. Director Imamura?
Present.
Director Moore is absent. Director Smith? Here. Vice President Schreiner? Here. President Morton? Also here. So we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody would stand. Director Smith, would you like to lead us? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, anyone wishing to address the board, oral communications on matters not appearing on the agenda, this is the time for that to occur. Your comments are limited to 4 minutes. I'm looking at attendees in the Zoom attendance. If anybody wishes to be heard, if you could raise your hand. I'm not seeing any hands being raised. Anybody in the room? Don't see anybody in the room seeking to speak. We will close oral communications. We are now moving to item 5 on our agenda. Patrick Breen is already at the podium, ready to go. Marina Coast Water District Groundwater Sustainability Agency matters. Action items. The first is to adopt a resolution to amend our fiscal year 25-26 capital improvement program budget for project GA 2402, install monitoring wells. Those following along in your agenda packet, it's on page 1.
Thank you, President Moore, members of the board, Patrick Green, Water Resources. And so, yes, item 5A1 is to amend the fiscal year CIP program budget for the monitoring wells project as indicated in the title. And really what this is doing is it's capturing the CIP that we didn't capture last month. If you recall, there was a series of CIPs that were the budgets from the previous year were moved forward into this year. And so that's essentially what we're doing here. This is a project where the board has already awarded the contract to Majora Brothers for the work. And what this item here is doing is moving the budget from last year and then also adding some budget to fully fund the board authorized amount for the project. And just the project set to begin over on 4th Avenue this week. We had an information meeting with the neighborhoods last week. And so we're kind of excited to get this going and get it completed by the end of the year. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Director Smith.
Thank you. What was the community's feedback, or did they have any concerns that they brought up? I knew that Ren was there.
I was actually on vacation, but according to the staff reports
Right.
that I received, it was very well received. They were happy that it was being done. They had a lot of questions, or there was a lot of comments about how they thought we were being very proactive with the installation of these wells and to monitor the groundwater in the way that we're doing. Apparently, there was also a lot of questions regarding some other projects that we're doing and things like that, but generally well received. The water resources staff was there, and if I was presenting on it, I would have had some pictures that they had a good booth going. We had poster boards up. It was fairly misty because the poster boards, I was actually gonna maybe bring one today, but they got a little wet, so. But generally, very well received, and we're gonna conduct another one out in the East Garrison area once we get closer to commencing with the I guess we're calling it C2 tank now, the F tank project site out there off of Watkins Gateway.
Right, and will you be letting the community, like, you'll need the fire station to reserve that, so.
Yeah, well, we're gonna seek a location, so yeah, we have
Yeah,
to nail
well, I
that
can
one down.
just hook up with me and I'll get you that location, so.
And what we did is we sent a letter out to the neighborhood and informing them the information session, and informing them of the project and when it's gonna commence and things. So,
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say, I appreciate making the effort to be proactive rather than starting the work and then people wondering, what's going on. It gets more difficult, I think, after the fact. So I'm glad you're proactive on it. Thank you.
Director Imamura, do you have any questions?
No, I would just like to make a motion to approve.
Okay, I'll second. So it is a motion to amend the fiscal year 25-26 capital improvement program budget for our project GA 2402, the installation of monitoring wells. The first and a second, anybody wishing to comment? Now would be the time. I'm looking at attendees. If anybody wishes to speak, raise your hand. No hands are going up. Seemed like somebody was coming in the room. I don't see anybody wishing to comment in the room, so we're ready for a roll call vote. Director Imamura?
Yes.
Director Moore is absent. Director Smith?
Yes.
Vice President Schreiner?
Yes.
President Morton? Yes, so that passes. Thank you, Patrick. And now we're moving to 5A2, which is the request to adopt a resolution nominating our general manager, Ram Schertzinger, to the Salinas Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency Advisory.
Yes, thank you again, President Morton, members of the board. Yeah, as the title indicates, this is the item to nominate the general manager to the Salinas Valley Basin GSA Advisory Committee. The Salinas Valley Basin Advisory Committee has been, they've recently amended their bylaws and their membership for their board action. They're trying to create a more effective advisory committee to advise their boards. I guess a certain board member, their board had issues, which is kind of how the information was flowing. Subsequently, they opened up an application process that was open to the public and on their website. There were two applicants from the district that applied. One was a board member and then also our general manager. Salinas Valley has sent a letter that is attached that indicated what they're trying to do is they're trying to make, they want the chief executives for the certain agencies that are part of the Salinas Valley Groundwater Basin, Seco GSA, Marina Coast GSA, Water Resources Agency, M1 Water, and that's all. To have their chief executives on because part of this reorganization is orienting the Salinas Valley Groundwater Basin or GSA in more of a planning entity versus a implementing entity in terms of projects. And so what the intent here is, the thoughts being is that the agencies that perhaps may actually build these projects need to be involved as early in the process as possible, especially when they're going to be advising the board, the Valley Board, with moving forward with various projects now that they're kind of moving into more of an implementation phase of the GSP implementations for the various subleases. That's it. And I can take any questions.
So it's a movement from doing studies, gathering information to planning and implementation, correct?
Generally speaking, yes, and the entities that would be doing more of the doing, are this is why they want the chief executives or involved as early in the process as possible. There's financing issues, there's implementation, there's technical issues that, you know, they've deemed it very valuable to have those chief executives there at the table.
With the depth of knowledge necessary.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, I will take does anybody wish to ask Patrick, questions?
I do
Vice
have-
President Strang, please.
I have a couple of questions. I just want to clarify in my own thinking, where we have different roles. And right now, I believe our president of our board is the liaison to the SKBGSA. Can you help me be clear on how is that role different than this advisory committee role?
In terms of the liaising, if that's a word, it's through our steering committee, and the steering committee, the Marina Coast GSA and the Salinas Valley Groundwater Basin GSA, through our cooperation MOU that we have signed, contemplates the steering committee to steer any issues that the agencies may have in a bilateral fashion. This is more of a participation in the greater planning and project implementation that's going to go on throughout the Salinas Valley, and just in terms of trying to make it a more of a regional approach, because the scale of the issues are such that it's going to take a lot of people and a lot of partners to be involved.
Okay,
So
and then,
they're dual roles,
Yes, ma'am.
different functions.
Yes.
yes, okay. And then we internally sort of have a community outreach committee, and then we have a spokesperson role. Are you prepared to speak with that, or should I be asking our general manager or our board president? How do you see those interacting or not in us?
So spokesperson in regard to this advisory committee or in regard
In
to,
general, you and Rem speak for our district, like the whole district.
that's my understanding under the board policy,
Yeah,
and Rem's role as our general manager is not subject to the board policy.
and then the
Yes.
community outreach committee is more of an indirect. Role. Is that how you see it? It's going with Rem to provide information from the community to the contracted PR people, or how do
Yeah.
you see
Hold on a
that
minute.
role? So,
Director Smith, hold on, let's get Rem to answer. I'm trying to understand the question, and Rem, if you understand and are prepared to answer.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, well, so the committees have no direct authority, and so there are ways for the district staff to keep the board up to date on information. So the outreach committee is really the two members to receive and provide feedback to me and staff on how's it working, is it working, is it not working? So it's a throttling effort in that space. It's the same as true. Actually, the only committee that gives tacit direction is the executive committee that says, yeah, the agenda is good, move forward. Right, so we provide feedback and resources, we provide feedback in budget, we provide feedback on personnel. But it's really to inform two of the members so that the board already has a working knowledge as a group, as a collective of the things that staff is doing. So it isn't just this meeting where we get to talk to the board, it's those as well.
And then, but we would just, if he informed us of anything, then we would relay that during this meeting, correct?
And anything that's presented to you, right? So
Right.
you received an outreach, we received a brief from Martin regarding all the activities, everything looks good. We're providing outreach at the following fairs and events. That's pretty much it.
okay,
But
But
that,
also the committees have the ability to request through the executive committee, through the general manager, that something be put on the full board agenda.
absolutely.
So the concept of the committees, if an issue arose from a community upswell of information or concerns, that it would come in front of the board for us to consider and taking appropriate action. I see the committee, the outreach committee, the fact that you organized or participated in the presentations that we're going to go do the drilling wells, that the community outreach is, I see your committee has been effective in helping to coordinate that. and in other events as well.
Mhm.
So I do appreciate the work that you and Director Imamura have been doing with our staff for the outreach. Thank you.
But I think that's different than being the
Outreach for this.
face of the district, right? The board policy is very clear that the spokespersons are the board president and the general manager. So board members interacting with the public as a director shouldn't happen. And that's a very difficult thing to deal with, as you know, right? Because whether you like it or not, they see you as a representative of the district, so it's you really have to be careful.
Yeah, very careful. So for this, item, I would, make motion that we provide our general manager to fill this role rather than a board member.
That's what the motion's for, isn't it?
Mhm.
So that was my motion, was to nominate General Manager Schertzinger
Mhm.
to be our representative.
Okay, did you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
But I want to be sure that we have full understanding in the motion of what we're doing.
Yeah.
The alternative is that if the board wanted to consider naming a board director as the person to be our spokesperson, that also would need to go through for board approval, for us to agree, vote, decide as a board who has the ability to fulfill this position for MCWD, which we did not take that action previously. This is the first time we're addressing this. So the motion is given the direction of the advisory committee, the direction of what they are looking for the skill and depth of knowledge and the leadership that they want to have, providing that advice and information, that our general manager seems much more capable than any of the 5 of our current board members. And so I am supporting this motion, I think, and we have a second.
I have a question first, though, let me backtrack that. So to Rem, sorry,
Withdrawing your second.
just for a minute, because I need to ask Rem something.
Mhm.
So is this just for the Salinas Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency, correct? So if somebody comes to you, say, a board member with a question regarding this, it's like, nope, I can't answer it, I have to direct you to Rem. Is that what you're saying? And like how, because people will ask those questions randomly, just they know you're on the water district board, right? So you might get a question, well, something might come up, right? Even at like one of my board meetings for my homeowners association. So I say, okay, no, I have to direct that to our representative, correct?
You should always, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm just asking because I get questioned about a lot of different things, and I'm not gonna just constantly, when I know the answer, say, oh, I'm sorry, I have to, because it makes me look dumb, and I'm not gonna do that. So if somebody has a very general question, I'm just gonna answer it.
Yeah, it's up to you to decide what that means.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that if it doesn't make a board of director look good if you can't answer somebody's question like right off the bat, like. It's like, I just sent you one today, right? It's a water leak. I've got to get it taken care of. Those kind of things. I'm not going to just go, oh, well, I don't know. You have to talk to Rem.
Yeah, I just want to modify one word.
Okay,
You don't have to get it taken care of. It's not your responsibility to get it taken care of. It's ours. And so you can either let me know, which is your
Right,
power,
right,
and I'll take care of it,
Right.
or you can direct them to customer service.
right,
That's
That-
all good.
right. So that's where I was just trying to clear up
Okay.
that, but
So we're getting
communication.
far off of the agenda item, so I'm gonna bring you back in a little bit. And so is your second still hold?
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Anybody in the public wishing, so if somebody has their hand up.
Right.
Yeah. director,
Oh, Director Imamura,
That's
Thank
me.
you.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I'm gonna support the motion anyway, but, I did have a question about the, and again, Patrick, thanks for the, presentation, and I read your agenda transmittal. So I guess the key thing is that the SVB GSA has communicated to MCWD GSA staff that the intention of the agency seats is to have the lead executive of the various agencies become the advisory committee member. Okay. But in the initial email that they sent out, it didn't say that. It led one to believe that it also included publicly elected board members. So has it been the history of this committee to just appoint general managers of the various agencies? Or has there been public members on this committee? Publicly elected members on this committee?
Thank you, Director Moore. No, there has never been any, to my knowledge, any elected members. I actually sat on the advisory committee as a representative of the Marina Coast GSA, as it was a much more diffuse group. It was 25 members, and they were in large measure staff representatives from each of the agencies. And so as part of this, trying to sharpen the spear of this particular committee, they're looking to get the chief executives on the committee now.
Okay, well, I guess in the future, they need to make sure that it's very explicit when they send out these email blasts to the agencies requesting nominations. Because if it is a narrow thing, then they should just say, well, if you're not a general manager or anything, then you don't need to reply. You know what I mean? So hopefully in the future, they can get that cleaned up. Unless they change it. I mean, my preference is it should be open to publicly elected board members as well. But again, I'm not too familiar at all with this particular committee, so my comment is just in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Imamura. Any other questions, comments on the motion? I don't see any other hands up. We'll take a roll call vote.
Director Moore is absent. Director Smith?
Yes.
Director Imamura?
Yes.
Vice President Schreiner?
Yes,
And President Morton?
Yes. So that motion passes for 4 votes of those of us present. Congratulations, Rem Schertzinger. Your hat has just taken on a new form. Okay, so next we move to in the agenda. Thank you, Patrick Breen. That is, we're moving back to the Marina Coast Water District matters. So I'm thanking our Marina Coast Water District Groundwater Sustainability Agency, Patrick Breen, bringing us those items. We're moving to our consent calendar. We have 5 items. Receive and file the check register for the month of August. Approve the draft minutes of the regular joint board GSA meeting of August 18th. Adopt a resolution to approve an emergency alert and data sharing agreement between the County of Monterey and MCWD for emergency alerts. Adopt a resolution to award a construction contract to Perma Green Hydro Seeding for general construction services for the landscape installation at our A1, A2 reservoir landscaping project. And lastly, E is to award a construction contract to the Don Chapin Company for general construction services for the construction of the fire hydrant replacement project. Those 5 items, I will ask board members, is there anything you wish to pull? General Manager, Mr. Schertzinger.
Madam President, inside the consent agenda and on the dais and in Member Imamura's room, we have a number of modifications. One to the minutes, amending the Director of Administrative Services name and then adding the word award.
Yes.
And then also on the item 7D, we added more information to the financial impact, so to inform the board that inside the contract being awarded, the budget for the contract was $400,000. The project will cost $211,000, leaving us a remainder of $188,360. So the staff is asking that the consent calendar be approved as amended.
Okay. Okay. So consent agenda as calendar as amended. I do want to pull item C. Does any director wish to pull any other item? I don't see any other hands going up. I don't see anybody in the room requesting. So I will accept a motion to approve items 7A, the check register, B, the amended minutes, D, the contract with hydro seeding as amended on our dais, and E, the construction contract to Don Chapin Company.
So,
Okay, so we have a motion. I'll second. Any comments on the motion? I'm looking to the public. If you wish to comment on the motion for approval of our consent agenda on all items excluding the emergency alert item, which we'll take separately. Now's the time to comment. I've given everybody a chance to raise their hands, none going up, but in the room, Director Smith.
Yes, I have to abstain from the minutes from the August 18th.
Okay, so I'm gonna withdraw my motion. I'm going to make a motion that we approve items A, D, D as in David, and E of the consent agenda.
second holds.
Okay, so now anybody wishing to comment on the motion? Seeing nobody, may we take a roll call vote on approving A, D, and E?
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Imamura,
Yes.
Director Moore is absent. Vice President Schreiner? Yes. President Morton?
Yes, so those three measures, consent agenda items passed. I'm gonna go back now and I will make a motion that we approve the draft minutes for the regular meeting on August 18, 2025 as amended.
And second,
So we have a first and a second. Anybody wishing to comment on this motion? Seeing no hands? Anybody nobody here wants to comment? We're ready for a vote on approval of the draft minutes.
Director Moore is absent. Director Smith
Abstain.
and Director Imamura?
Yes.
Vice President Schreiner? Yes. President Morton?
Yes, so those passed. Okay, I did pull item C, which those of us that have an agenda packet in front of us, it appears at page 25. And I don't know if we need a whole presentation. I just did have some concerns and my concern is about the sharing of information, and my concern is about safeguarding that information. And safeguarding that information is well addressed, except that the contract terms as presented on these pages does not really come to the direction that if the contract is terminated, that upon termination of the agreement, so I am requesting that an additional provision be entered into this contract, that upon termination of the agreement, all data will be removed and removal will be certified by the county. And that would be added as paragraph 4.6 in the term. So does anybody wish to discuss this further? Otherwise, I'm going to make a motion that the agreement, that the resolution be adopted with that specific change. I'm looking for comment, Vice President Schreiner.
Could I ask that if that same thought and spirit of the law is already somewhere here that I haven't seen?
No, it definitely was the intention in our conversations to have that in there, so I think it just got missed. Cause definitely the confidentiality is the utmost importance, yeah. And so one thing I did want to point out too, is under the attachment A, you'll see, or sorry, attachment 1, you'll see the elements in there and there is a customer name. And so typically every entity provides a customer name. And so with my conversation with the county, this is just going to be for MCWD. It's a required field, but we're going to put customer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's not going to be a name even associated with the address that we provide to them. So we were thinking ahead, trying to get all the I's dotted and T's crossed, but I think we missed the termination clause. So, and the other thing that got pointed out is under the county contact and the district contact, we're going to go ahead and generalize those. So we're just going to remove my name and Laura's name, and then we'll have the position on there just in case someone separates from either entity.
Understood. So it would name the position.
Correct. And then obviously the emails will change here.
Okay, so my motion is to adopt it with the addition of 4.6 plus the change of removing the specific names and utilizing titles.
Can I ask one more, ask?
Oh, we're done.
Can we have in there, under the motion that if, because this has to go back to their legal counsel, of course, if there's any minor changes and they're not subsidence, that we give our legal approval to. make
So my
those
motion
changes.
would be amended now to add that should there be a requested change by the county that's not substantive in nature, that with the approval of our council, our district council, that the contract may be executed.
Second,
Okay. And Ms. Riso, did you get all of those?
yes.
Okay, so that's the motion before us. Anybody wishing to comment on the motion, now would be the time. Director Imamura, did you have any questions that we,
No comment. Thank you for that, addition on there, our amendment.
thank you. So, and a public, nobody's raising their hand, nobody in the room is here to comment. We're ready for a vote with those amendments. Don't leave, Derek. Stand up and celebrate. Director Imamura? Director
Yes.
Imamura? Director Moore
Yes.
absent?
Yes, oh,
Dr. Smith? Yes. Vice President Schreiner?
Yes.
President Martin? Yes. So with those amendments, we have now adopted the resolution to approve an emergency alert and data sharing agreement between the County of Monterey and the Marina Coast Water District for emergency alerts. This is a very important piece for the protection of our community. I'm very glad that staff has brought this forward. Thank you, Derek, for your work. And to get this in front of the board for approval and enactment. Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda, we now are moving into our action items. The first action item is to review the Marina Coast Water District fiscal year 24-25 preliminary unaudited year-end financials. Those of you with the board packet, it's on page 52. And Mary Lagaska, by her correct name, is going to walk us through this.
So good evening, President Morgan, members of the board and the public. Tonight, I am pleased to share with you the fiscal year 25 year-end preliminary report. So please note that we are still working to complete the audit. So the numbers presented tonight are unaudited. Though unaudited, we do not expect the numbers to change significantly between now and the time that we complete the audit. So just some housekeeping reminders before I get into the presentation. I have a slight correction on the transmittal on page 53. That should be the bottom portion, the overall summary revenue and expense section. So the total revenue should read 43 million instead of 44.1. Expenses remain the same at 37.9 million. So the net revenue should be 5.1 instead of 6.2 million. So we had a last minute correction in the tables and we failed to update the last section of the transmittal. So my apologies. So as usual, your agenda packet contains 10 tables containing a lot of information on the different financial sections. Most of the items are numbered on the left-hand section for easy reference. On the right-hand section, I've also provided 2 years worth of figures to give more context to the numbers.
I think if we could change today, I think it would be more clear to the public. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Tio, she wants you to advance the slides.
Thank you, Tia.
Okay, so the PowerPoint that I prepared is going to be a high-level summary of the tables before you. I will just be highlighting key sections of the tables to help us move through the all the numbers, but feel free to interrupt if you have any questions or need further
clarification. So this slide is just a list of the different tables included in your agenda packet from page 55 to 66. So we'll start off with a summary of operations by cost center or fund. We will next dive into the revenues, go through our operating expenses, both salaries and benefits and department operating expense. We'll go through our capital equipment and CIP by project and funding source, and then investments, and finally the reserve section. Next slide, please. So this is an overall summary of our operations for fiscal year 25. Total revenue, both operating and non-operating, is 43 million. Total expenses is 37.9 million between the operating expenses, capital equipment, CIPs, and principal debt service payments. So we are ending the year with a net revenue of 5.1 million. This net revenue will be going back to our operating reserves for our reserve policy. So if you recall, our reserve policy means that we first fund the capital replacement reserve, which we have done this year. The next one that we need to fund is our operating reserve. And finally, we can move on to funding our rate stabilization reserve. So this 5.1 will go back into the operating reserve. Okay. Next slide, please. So this slide 4 is a more detailed look into our revenues for fiscal year 25. So overall, we did a good job on a lot of our major revenue drivers, as indicated by the check mark. Water and sewer sales. This is the first year that we have implemented the new rates. So our budget numbers came from the projections during the rate study. So we are hitting those numbers. Recycled water is at 80%. We had anticipated some additional connections when we were doing the budget. Unfortunately, those did not materialize this year. So that's why we're a little short of the recycled water. Developer revenue is at 112%. Though please note that this revenue is a reimbursement of matching developer expense. So we have a similar number on the expense side. Other fees and charges is comprised of backflow charges, permits, and meter fees. We are at 118% of the budgeted amount. So what happened here was that after we adopted the budget, we did go back and updated our fee schedule. So that's why the budgeted numbers are a little short. So we did the update on the fees after we completed or we adopted the budget. So capacity fee and capital surcharge, we are at 155%. This revenue source is driven by the amount of development in the area, and we did really good this year compared to last year, which was also good. Interest rate revenue, we are at 309%. So last year with the new administration, there was a lot of uncertainty in the market, so we expected rates to kind of go down. But so far, rates have been good. They went down a little bit, but not significantly. So that's why you see 309% of the budgeted amount. And this is 1 million more than prior year. Grant revenue, we budgeted 17.8 million there, but 15.2 million did not materialize, and those are for some CIP projects. So though you see 3% here, this is a good number because we are current on our grant reimbursement. So as soon as we expend, we turn around and we do draw down on the grant. So if you see 486,000 here, that's also because we only have 486,000 in expenses. Bond proceeds, again, you only see 67%, nothing to worry about. We only draw what we actually expend. So same as grant. Other revenue, this includes rentals and other income. Water source fee, this is an internal transaction to fund GSA operations. Recycled water interfund loan interest revenue. So this is new for fiscal year 25 and it was not budgeted. If you recall, in the middle of the year, we were doing a lot of deficit cleanup within our different funds. And this was one of the things that we had to do. Recycled water had to borrow funds from Ord Sewer. So this is a revenue for Ord Sewer and there's a matching expense for recycled water. So overall, less the grants that we did not receive, the district collected 101% of our budgeted revenue, and that is 70% more than prior years. Next slide. Okay, so salaries and benefits. Our biggest expense for salaries and benefits is of course wages, followed by retirement costs and payroll taxes and pension expense. So most of our expense line items are within our budgeted amounts, except for some slight shortage on wages. We did spend 105%. So for fiscal year 25, we had a 10% COLA and we also added one additional position, which was not budgeted. Health insurance costs 108%. We are seeing a historical increase in healthcare costs. So we will be monitoring this better next year. Other benefits 118%. This includes clothing allowance for staff, which slightly went over budget. So other than most expense items, most of the expense items are well managed. Salaries and benefits is one of those areas where it's hard to get savings from because most of our benefits are contracted or negotiated. So overtime is the only one we can kind of really control. So next slide, please. So overtime, this slide shows you the historical overtime cost for the district. We have done a great job managing this expense item over the years, as you can see from the graph. The other graph on the right is a pie chart of how our current overtime cost is broken down by department. So we have admin first, followed by conservation close to O&M, and then the other departments have a slight overtime cost. Next slide. So department expenses. Some of the highlights of the department expenses are the financial and admin expense that went over budget by 224% or 2.7 million. So let me explain myself. So if you recall last year, we did two bonds within one fiscal year, the 2024 bond in August and the 2025 bond in February. So those were not budgeted. The 2024 bond was used to help finance capital replacement projects. And the 2025 bond was purely a refinancing of our 2015 bond that saved us 2.3 million in future interest payments, but those were not budgeted. And we also had bond issuance costs that we needed to book, but that's fully covered by the bond receipts. So another item there is going to be accounting also did a cleanup of our accounts receivable. So these are old accounts that's been sitting on our books. We had to write off 1.2 million of deemed uncollectible accounts. So a major part of that 1.2 is Bayview. Bayview is 500,000. So that settled around November of 2023. So that should have been booked around fiscal year 24. But accounting failed to recognize that expense last fiscal year. So we are recognizing it this year. So we kind of did some cleanup on our accounts receivable. So I do want to emphasize this is a non-cash expense. So the bad debt expense is a non-cash transaction. It's merely recognizing some of our old receivables that are less likely to be collected. So we had to expense it out. So this is just an accounting entry. Professional services and legal fees are also well managed with only around 50% spent. So legal fees, as you can see, is a 60% drop from the prior year. So this is the second year that we continue to do good, and we will continue to manage those expenses. Next slide. So, we have other expenses, other department expenses, they are mostly within the budgeted amounts. Monterey One expense is slightly down. This is due to some overpayments from the prior year that, we finally were able to reconcile with Monterey One. So those overpayments from prior year were netted out against the current year expense. That's why you see a low number. We also have the recycled water interfund loan, which was not budgeted, which I mentioned when we were talking about the revenue. So this is an internal transaction, and there is a matching fee. So other than that, despite some big items that were not budgeted, overall, we are still within 89% of our operating expense. And that is actually 70% lower than prior year. So overall, I think between the budget, the revenue and the expense, I think we really had a good year, managing our revenues and our expenses. Next slide. So an update on the development. During the budget, we identified, we expected to construct 416 units. We actually constructed 78% of that, 324 units, and 92 units or 22% is gonna be, was pushed to next fiscal year. Developments in the area contribute towards the district's developer revenue and capacity. Next slide. So CIPs, this table was actually presented when our district engineer did his CIP update last month. So out of the 55 projects, we have 11 projects that are completed or near completion. The CIP budget less the grants not received is 35.2 million, which we spent 25.5 million, and that's around 28% of the adjusted CIP budget. Next slide. So this is a list of all the 11 projects that were completed or near completion for your reference. Next slide. So here are some of the pictures of the B side, the customer service section, the cameras, and A1, A2. Next slide, please. Okay, so historical cash reserve balances. So as you can see from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 25, we've been doing great in terms of our reserves. Between 21 to 22, we added 1 million, 22 to 23, another 10, 23 to 24, 9.8, and 24 to 25, 6 million. Next slide. This is another. This is our historical investment income, and this is by calendar year. So we started calendar year 2021 at 54,000, and it's been a great 3 years. Mid-year 2025, we are at 988,000, so we do expect to meet or exceed the prior year investment. Next slide. So this is our reserves breakdown. So our total reserves is 47.5 million, 42% of which is restricted, which is mainly capacity fees, and 58% is unrestricted, and that's distributed between the capital replacement fund, the building removal fund, and our general fund or operating reserve. Next slide. So this is not related to the year-end presentation, but I am very pleased to share with you. And I'm very pleased to share with you that the district got its first VFOA budget award for the budget. So we now have We now have 2 out of the 3 required to get the GFOA triple crown, we will be working on as soon as we finish the audit and before we start the budget. So that concludes my presentation, and I think.
Thank you, Mary. So when you, just going back, just a quick, you corrected us in our net surplus from 6.2 million to 5.1 million.
Yes.
Would that alter what's on the slide 13 where you're saying 6 million?
Oh, yes, that's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure my numbers in my head match.
Yes, but it was a last minute change. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
it's fine. I'm just trying to make sure that I knew where this plugged in. Um,
13.
So item 13 of what was added. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Directors, any questions for Mary? Director Imamura, would you like to start?
No questions. Thank you, Mary.
Director Smith?
No.
Vice President Schreiner?
I do have a couple questions. When you mentioned, having more, spent in the financial and administrative category, I was also thinking that we had a pretty big change in the way that the district handled billing, right, with the new, how do we call that, water consumption calculation for the sewage flow. Was that included in additional expense? Because that was a pretty big lift.
Yes and no. So we did change, there was a change in the way, in the calculation, but, in terms of expenses, we also, did a lot of the customer service side. So we had a new vendor, we consolidated a lot of things. Though we had all that, based from the analysis that I did, we actually saved a lot of money with the changes that we did in terms of expenses for customer service. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. It did not add, but we did a lot of changes and we are actually seeing a savings
In the long run, so the
on
new
how we
system.
operate customer service with all the changes in the vendors and the consolidation, the payment plans, the different payment methods that we added. So there's an operating savings there.
Very good. And I'm also glad about the reduction in overtime from years before. I mean, my ideal world is that overtime would be, for big things like storm events,
Yes, and emergency.
that you just have no choice. And I know, the operations crew is working pretty hard to make sure we don't have any system kind of failures, and hopefully they feel supported by the board in that regard. But I see that there's a lot less overtime. We're moving in that direction. And so I really appreciate that. And, nothing personal to in-house counsel, but that the legal fees are also starting to come down a bit for the district. Nothing personal. We love your work, Council Mazuda. It's just been, it's been a big burden for our community, and I appreciate that we're getting some of that squared away. Not that we're initiating so much, but we're having to defend ourselves a lot. So thank you for that, and congratulations on the new budget award. Very fine. Good work. And then you mentioned too that 5.1 you were just asking about, that is going into our reserves according to our new reserve policies. And that makes the district a little more stable.
Stable, yes, and if you recall, our reserve policy says that we need to have 180 months worth of operating reserve. So right now, I think the operating reserve is at 26 million. The number that we need to get to is around 40 plus. So once we hit that number, then we move into the rate stabilization reserve. So all of this is really geared towards building financial stability.
Yeah, thank you for that so much. I had forgotten about this comment that was made at the Special Districts Association meeting by the fire guys. I think they were talking about Paradise. I could be wrong. There's been some pretty big catastrophic fires. But the water district in that place that had the catastrophic fires, not only did they lose those homes, but they had no way to have revenue to rebuild the the water infrastructure because of the fire. Now it's just like, oh, Yeah, I never thought about how you would have to recover from a catastrophic event. So thank you for that, for
And we
helping.
need to be prepared for something like when COVID happened. So the state went down, and, you know, we cannot shut down any water. A lot of people lost their, jobs. We did not have a steady stream of income coming in, but we needed to provide water 24/7. So we need to be ready for something.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Did that raise any questions for you? Or no?
That was nice.
So just going back, Vice President Schreiner pointed out the overtime, which is nominal, 19,657. I was just curious, I understand the admin and some of these, I was just curious why conservation is 28%. Are we understaffed in conservation? Is there something we should be? 19,000 is hardly anything.
Right.
It's just the symbolism here where you have this big green patch.
Right.
I'm
So-
referring to slide 6.
Yeah, so we're sending our conservation coordinator out to fairs and whatnot. So we have him here during the week, during the normal business week, but also
Those
we're paying his
events.
overtime during those.
Okay. Obviously 19.
But it sure is it's a big piece of the triangle, big piece of the pie.
Yeah, I
It's
just
not
noticed
necessarily
that, and I just wanted to be sure that we were adequately staffed.
Yes,
It's a balance there,
Big
19,000 versus, that's 28% of 19,000. You're fine. Okay.
well, I wouldn't say it that way, but yes. This comes, these guys are doing great, and they
Yeah.
know that I'm watching, and they know that I'm I'm putting the screws,
So they can see that we're all watching,
we're all watching.
and good job. Thank you. So we have, I'm sorry, Director MMR, I'm seeing your hand. Thank you, Vice President Sharner also.
Yeah, sorry, I know you asked me the first time and I wasn't thinking here, but I just wanted to clarify, maybe you mentioned it already, it just slipped, with my hearing or something, but on page 3, the year-end summary, and then you have fiscal year 25-26 year-end summary. What's that? I mean, we're not in 26 yet.
So it's the caption on your slide. The bold print at the top
Yes,
says
that's it.
24-25,
That's it.
but I think it's a,
Yeah.
Yes, should be fiscal
Okay.
year 20.
Yeah, President Morton, I know you're good about catching those things, so I was wondering, maybe since you didn't mention anything, I thought, oh, I guess it's okay. Anyway,
Yeah, well,
yeah, okay. So, as we can see, the salaries and benefits are a considerable big chunk of our total revenue, at least about 25%. Which is probably, I guess, is that what you say would be the industry average? About 25%, 25-30%?
Correct, yes.
Even more.
Yeah, it can be more depending on the organization and the contracts, but
Right.
generally around 30%.
Yeah, because I know I know it might not be pertinent to our discussion here, but I know school boards, their salaries and benefits equal about almost 80-85% of their budget. Anyway, so I'm glad we're not up in that range. The other thing I just wanted to bring to attention is, I guess it's page 7, education and training, and that's for staff. And that's about 150,000 was budgeted. And about 60% of that was spent. So either we're over budget on there, and that's in contrast to what the board adopted on a vote of 4-1 to limit the elected board members to $2,000 a fiscal year. So I think there's a big disconnect there, wherein board members who are elected by the public are only allowed to utilize that amount of money, and I think we need to start looking at that again. So that's my only other comment. Other than that, I know it was just a typo, but that's fine. Okay, well, thank you for the report, Mary.
Director Smith.
I'm so sorry. Okay, so I just have a really quick question, and it could be for outreach committee when we get there, so just tell me if I'm out of, okay. So on page 7, the rebate program, so that budget is based on how you're basing your budget on prior year rebates going out, correct? Okay, so is this number so low because we're not letting people know enough about the rebates available? Because I know I've never seen anything come out about, I know there's rebates on the website for washing machines, and so is there a reason why that's so low? I guess that's what I want to say. Are people just not knowing that we're offering all these different rebates, or?
I think
What's the
that,
trouble?
so, and well, let me try to answer it, and if I get it wrong, Patrick, just clip me. In the past, we've done some larger corporate or institutional rebate programs where we've done a number of toilets at the CSUMB and stuff like that, and I've tried to move away from that and tried to respond more to the public.
Right,
And I think the other half of that is we are experiencing a certain amount of demand hardening for the rebates. There's only so many toilets in the system
right.
for us to convert. There's only so many shower heads and whatnot. So we're seeing a little bit of demand hardening. I think we're seeing a little bit of Paul's time being pushed in other directions. And then also this large institution stuff, I'm really driving to stay away from.
Okay. Right, we have other rebates that are available for like irrigation.
Oh, yeah,
and-
ET controllers, washing
washers.
machines, toilet.
We're pushing it out a lot.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. I just want to make sure that the community is being aware that we do have those, because I feel like that could help. I mean, even if it's $50 or $100 off your $1,000 washing machine, you know.
Yeah, I think it's better than that, but yes, I
Yeah.
think we're trying to. We're putting it out there.
Okay.
We're-
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we have reviewed the Marina Coast Water District fiscal year 24-25 preliminary unaudited year-end financials. We have had our questions answered. Thank you, Mary Lucas.
Thank you.
Well done. Well done to the organization in the management of the financials and being within budget and actually having success with revenues that go in our reserves. That is to be acknowledged. Thank you. Staff. We are now moving to item 8B as in boy. And Derek Cray is at the microphone because wants us, the item before us, and he's going to present on, is to consider the introduction and first reading of ordinance number 65, an ordinance amending Title 5 Sewer Service System, Chapter 5.20, Use of Public Sewers, Section 5.20.050.060, and adding a section 0.45 and 0.062 and 0.065 to the Marina Coast Water District Code in accordance with updated standards and requirements for the reduction of fats, oil, and grease in public sewer systems. And also the item would request set a public hearing date for October 20th, 25. So you're going to explain this first. For those of us with a program, an agenda, I'll call it a program, it's at page 67. And the ordinance that is before us starts at page 70.
Yes. Thank you, President Morton. Thank you for reading that very long title.
Yeah.
To it. It's a pleasure to be here. Derek Cray, your operations and maintenance manager. Yeah, so the item before you is looking to amend Title 5, Chapter 5.20 to relate to source control, which is fats, oil, grease, and public sewer systems. I do have a presentation here. There are a lot of changes to this ordinance. If you have questions during the presentation, just stop me and ask me at that time. There's a lot here. A full warning, hopefully you haven't ate recently. I do have some nice pictures of fog in the sewer. I think it's important to know why I'm up here asking for these changes, right? They're nothing too graphic, but just give me a little bit of warning. So, well, can't read all that, but we go. Fats, oil, grease, and wastewater collection system, so they're unwarranted because they cause blockages in your sewer mains, right? Which can lead to spills. They used to be called overflows, but the state water board decided to change the name to spills and cost all these public agencies $1,000 to change their documents, so we call them spills now. You'll hear me use the word overflow still sometimes, so it's stuck in my brain, but they can cause health and safety issues, obviously, because you don't want wastewater on ground. Property damage, so if a spill is caused by a faulty MCWD main, we may be liable for property damage. Fines from the state water board. Well, there's sometimes, well, they're rare, it just depends on the type of fine, the type, or I'm sorry, the type of spill you have and location, right? So there's 4 different categories of spills that the state classified. If you get into a category 1, it's typically an automatic fine, and that's any water that reaches waters of the US or waters of the state. So if we have a sewer spill, for example, that goes out to the Pacific Ocean, it is possible in our system, there is a potential, most likely that we're gonna get a fine for that. The other thing, you get a fine if it's an excessive amount of sewage, or if it's a big issue to public safety, so depending again on the location. And then the other thing is the ongoing O&M costs associated with enhanced preventive maintenance, or called PM. So that's why we want to leave fog out of the mains in a cup, set it out by a garbage can, or take it somewhere to dispose of it properly, not down wastewater.
I have a question. So what you've just recited here are state fines that would come to MCWD.
Yes,
And the ordinance now that you're directing us to review is for us to avoid this problem. We're trying to shift the responsibility to keep fog out of our sewer lines
correct.
and implement a means to fine the offender.
Means for enforcement, I'll get to that later.
Okay.
It's not necessarily fines. Fines can deter people. We want to stop them completely, and there's
Okay.
other means and methods that we have to be able to do that, so. But that is the reason behind this, is to have a proactive enforcement and compliance program, the reason for the update of this. Oops,
There's your graphic.
okay, so these are actual MCWD spills, and so, this first one right here is not a, in a toothpaste, that's actually grease in a, sewer line that is completely plugged, and so, this did cause a spill. Not this same particular spill, but one kind of like it, and so this was the actual spill we had. And this is typical, you'll see them come out of a manhole like that. And then over here is what happens if it goes to, backs up far enough and it gets to a house. Luckily, in this case, the clean out lid was actually off and it went outside. We would rather go outside, it's easier to clean up than going inside, right? And so depending on how the topo is and the layout of the system, or if they have a basement and not a backwater valve, it's a potential that sewage can actually go inside the residence, so, and cause a costly cleanup bill, to the district.
So while you're educating us, where does the device go? I should be able, the grease trap or the grease interceptor? In this picture, where is that?
On none of them. So they're usually at commercial or institutional food establishments or businesses.
But if
So
this,
I will
but
get
if
to
this
that.
clean out here was one, it would be near that.
This would actually most likely have a backwater valve, but if this was a commercial place, then it would go outside here if it was an interceptor. If it's a trap, they are typically located inside
Inside.
under the sink. Yes, which we'll show you some pictures of that here, might be on the next slide, actually. Yeah, we're getting close. So other issues that you can have besides the actual gravity mains, we can have problems on our force mains. And so here, you'll see an operator deragging a pump that is not just rags, but it's combined with grease. And so in the industry, we call those fatbergs. And if you're ever bored, go online on YouTube and type in the world's largest fatberg, and you'll be impressed. It's in another city, they're down walking in a sewer system, and it's just this massive iceberg of fats, oil, grease, rags, all combined that cause stoppages in sewer systems, so.
Director Imamura has a question. Director Imamura?
Oh, thank you. I had a question. So, I used to inspect these type of things. I was an environmental health inspector. And, when you get a call or somebody says, you know, there's a backup, do you, who usually calls you first? Is it the health department? Or do you contact the health department? Say this is a restaurant, a grease trap. So that's a violation of the food code, so. Do you coordinate that with the Monterey County Environmental Health Department?
We do, so it depends on, that's a good question, so it depends on the scenario, so the one that you just presented. We would go out there and then we would see that the issue with their grease trap or interceptor, and yes, we would contact the county health. In addition to that, on any spills that we have, we also contact the county health. So it's part of our policy, that if we respond to a spill, that we report it to the county health as well. And then
Okay.
depending on the location, it gets called in Cal OES as well. And then Cal OES contacts the county health on top of it, so. And that's
So
our department.
Do you do routine inspections then? Or what, or do you just react if there's a problem and someone calls and there's a spill, you know?
No, so as far as businesses go, we do have a compliance program, and so we do go out and do source control regularly. It just depends on the establishment, and maybe quarterly, and maybe. But we go out, we pop deep grease trap lids, interceptor lids, make sure they're compliant with pump out records. Really, that is what's driving this before you tonight, is that we want to put more teeth to our ordinance.
Director,
Okay.
Director Mamura, anything else?
No, thank you.
Director Smith?
Sorry, Derek, but I had a question on the previous video, but I guess,
Previous
I
slide?
can go back.
right, sorry, previous slide. I had my hands up, but it's okay. If you don't mind, I just had a quick question on it.
Gio, can you go back one?
Sorry. Okay,
Alright.
perfect.
There we go.
So you mentioned that is the house, correct, on the right?
Yep.
Okay, and is this all from one?
No, this was, I tried to get good pictures of different
Okay,
issues that can happen out in our system.
okay, so question on the house one, you said, okay, you see that we don't want it to go in the house because that would be a big expense for Marina Crest Water
Yep.
District, but if it's at that person's house, wouldn't they be responsible for paying for that if they caused it?
If they cause it, but a lot of these are actually caused from us out in the main, so the main backs up
Oh,
and then it goes up and out the lateral line,
okay,
which was the case in this one, right?
okay,
And so this is an easy cleanup for us. We get out there, we get the Vector, we set up all the paper and debris, and then remove the dirt that's saturated. We'll bring some fresh dirt in and we're good.
okay, so is there a way to trace it, like to where you know the culprit? Like I was just on a ship and we knew the culprit of the ship that clogged the whole
Oh,
fire system.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what it is. So what we'll do is we'll go in after every blockage.
Okay,
So we clear the blockage, and so we know the location the main where it's at, right? 'Cause
Right.
we send the jetter down there, it has footage on the hose reel, and we know, hey, it's 100 feet in. And then we see what's coming back, and it's nasty, but we'll see whether it's roots, it's grease, it's debris, so we know what it is. We don't necessarily know where it's coming from at that point. The next day or later on that day, depending on what time it is, we send the camera in there. And so we'll go down the line and we'll look up laterals and try to find where it's at. Sometimes it's hard to tell, and it's really just what happens with grease a lot of times is people or establishments will put it down the drain with really hot water.
right,
Well, it won't until it starts cooling down when it gets into the main, and then it starts to get hard. So you can't really track it necessarily
right.
to a particular residence.
So, right, because we're coming up on Thanksgiving, that's why I'm thinking about that. So when you are you having repeat, like, so you have like certain areas, is it like one certain area where you've seen like a lot of repeat offenders, I should say, or?
We have what we call trouble spots, and
Okay.
so it's not necessarily always offenders. If we could point it to someone, we're gonna react, right?
Right,
And so we don't necessarily know who that offender is, but we have trouble spots, and so those get put on a routine PM, and so we'll go out either quarterly or maybe some of them are monthly, or it could be annually, just depends. And then
Okay.
periodically we go back out and video and reassess. So maybe we can lower the frequency, or maybe we need to raise the frequency.
okay,
But we spend a lot of time, significant amount on PM duties in our wastewater system.
Okay, so it could be like a cluster of how many homes that maybe are in that, you're talking about, certain spots or what have you, that you have, trouble spots or whatever. I mean, is it like a whole neighborhood that you can't pinpoint it, or is it, could it narrow it down to like, say, 10 homes or something?
It just really, our trouble spot list is like 3 pages long, so
Oh.
it really just depends on the area, yeah, and so. And I do want to point out too, a lot of the times it's an actual defect in the main, and so the main, maybe it's old, or maybe it was installed improperly and it has a belly in it.
Right,
And so what happens when it has a belly in it is that it accumulates the grease, and then over time, that will cause blockage, and it may not be. Homeowner Joe is just pouring a bunch of grease down the line,
Right.
and it's just him, it could be just accumulation of everyone putting a little bit down. And then the rest of this belly, right?
okay,
And so really this ordinance tonight is not about homeowners per se,
Okay.
really targeting food establishments. Because that is the bulk of where fog is being introduced into the system.
okay,
But we do, and I'll get to it here in a second, we do PR, and that goes to all of our homeowners, residents, and then our food establishments as well.
okay, that's why I just took it home, and so I had to go back to it.
Yeah, I was trying to get a picture of just kind of different variations of spills of what we come across without anything too graphic, but it's the
Okay,
point across.
thank you for explaining that.
Yes, you're welcome. So back to this one, yeah, we're at a sewer lift station. So they had to pull this pump. It was ragged up, combination of grease and rag, so that's another negative aspect of having excessive fog in your system, right? And then we just talked about those sewer spills, and so what happens is we get out there and we take this factory truck out there and we'll clean up the area. If it reaches a storm line, the first thing we do is we berm it up and then get rid of all the sewage. And if it goes down the storm line, we'll determine how far it went down. We'll actually jet that, bring it back and clean it up. And then anything that we clean up goes in the Vector and it goes dumped back down the sewer that's working. We won't dump it down the one that's got blocked. So the effort is pretty extensive when we have a sewer spill. We're taking several operators out of the field, out into the field to do this. And the paperwork now through the state is pretty significant. So we spend a lot of time, probably at least a day to two of reporting between a couple operators, myself and the supervisor, just gathering all the data. But we have pretty neat spill calculators that we created in-house that we're able to calculate down to the gallon and determine start times and everything on the spill, so.
I have a question. So it's surplus to what you're presenting. This guy on the right is cleaning that looks like a street grate,
Yep, storm drain.
but we don't connect to the storm drains. That's runoff from, and it doesn't go into the bay, I get that, but we clean them.
Only on a spill, so yes, we have
Oh,
to
we're cleaning it
recapture.
because our spill
Sewer.
went over.
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
going, why are we doing?
No, we don't do PM at all on the
Sorry.
storm lines, yeah, so,
Okay.
and.
So there was a spill nearby
Correct.
and it entered in
Yes.
to the street storm
Yeah.
drain system. Okay, thank you. I needed that clarification. Because I'm wrong. Why are we doing that?
Yeah, but I do want to clarify too, that we do have storm lines that go out to the ocean still, so not everything is in perk ponds in our service area. So there is still an outfall that goes out to the ocean, so just keep that in
Well, the
mind.
city marina doesn't consider,
City and Marina, well,
because the city proper does not.
yes, correct. This is more in OMC area,
Thank you.
but good question. Alright. Alright, so how do we prevent fog and wastewater? We talked about some of these, but public education is one of them. Not necessarily related to what we're trying to do tonight, but I just wanted to make the board aware and the public that we do educate our ratepayers. Our PR team does a very good job of sending out email blasts. I'll show a couple of examples of those in the next slide. And really, we're trying to educate the public to let them know not only can you ruin the sewer main, but you can ruin the lateral line, which you are responsible for, so. The other thing to prevent fog, and this is the main one tonight, is installation of grease collection devices in areas producing high amounts of grease. So these are your businesses and food establishments. So these are your grease traps and your grease interceptors, and we'll get to the difference between the two and why we're trying to shift from traps to interceptors. And then the last one is have enforcement mechanisms to dissuade those or correct them of improper violation or improper disposal of fog. And And so that's hence the reason we're trying to do this ordinance change. So the first one, public education, so. I talked about, we send out regular email blasts. We are also a partner with Southern Bay Dischargers Group. So this is a partner with Monterey One Water, Cal-Am Water, Seaside County Sanitation District. So there's a bunch of entities in there. Essentially, almost everyone who's a part of M1 Water is a part of this Monterey Bay, Southern Bay Dischargers Group. And so they also provide, in addition to the stuff that we put out, newspaper articles, social media, radio. They have a very funny TV ad that they have on there, and they have their own little website. So we both kind of piggyback off each other. We provide input to the Southern Bay Dischargers Group as well. The district recently updated their website not too long ago. So if you go on the wastewater tab, you're going to see almost a whole page dedicated to fog information. And then O&M staff do go out and they perform fog inspections regularly at our food establishments. And then they hand out pamphlets to make them aware of why they need to do pump out to maintain their grease interceptors. So the importance of keeping fog out of the wastewater system. So here's just a couple of examples. You brought up a good one about the holiday coming up with Thanksgiving. We usually try to put out a holiday blast that says, enjoy your food, but you know, put your scraps into a cup and your grease, etc. And happy pipes, happy lives. So you'll see these coming out from our PR team pretty regularly. So we work close with them on that. Okay, here's the fun stuff. So grease collection devices. So these are actual MCWD food establishments.
Oh, nowhere.
If you ever want to know where to eat and not eat, talk to your source control guy, right? Or your cross connection control guy. So a grease trap, these are typically, they're smaller devices. They're usually located inside a building under a food prep sink. So you'll see in this far one right here, that's actually the grease trap right underneath the sink or prep sink. So these other two devices, or the other two traps that we see here, this is the same establishment, but these are examples of them needing to be maintained, that they are due for service. This is not lasagna here, this is all grease, and the other side here should be clear.
Oh
So,
my God.
yeah, so this is what we're trying to avoid, right, everyone? Because if it looks like this right here, it's going out in the system. So we don't want that.
So I have a dumb question. So where are they, okay, so where, because I never worked in the food industry in the kitchen anyway. Where does, when it gets collected in that trap,
Mhm.
they're supposed to take it out and do what with it then?
I'll show you a picture here soon, but a guy comes in basically with
There's a
a
haul.
mini Vector. Yeah, they haul it off
Okay.
and they suck it out.
Okay,
So you don't take it out and put it in your garbage can?
yeah, it's like,
No.
it's like a vacuum cleaner, it's like a
It's
service.
yeah, it's a
company
vacuum
that
cleaner.
comes in.
But yeah, that's a service that comes in.
Okay.
So there's grease haulers
Okay,
that come in, and that's part of the ordinance change too, is that they need to use recognized grease haulers that are making sure that they're removing it and then dumping it correctly, because we don't want them to remove the grease and go down to our manhole and dump it right back. Yeah, right. So they take it to Monterey One Water.
Oh.
So yeah, they handle the grease appropriately. But yeah, so that's a big one, to make sure that they're using appropriate people that grease haul and that they're measuring appropriately, right? Because really you should be pumping these out when the grease gets 25% on top and 25% on bottom. Anything more than that, it should be pumped out. And the frequency for traps is much more frequent than interceptors, because these are small devices, typically under 70 gallons. And so where your interceptors are about 750 gallons, so there's a lot more storage in them. So some of these that we have on restaurants, we can be pumped out weekly or even more than weekly. Those are the good ones. I mean,
Because they're doing
yeah, so they're doing it, so which is fine, but we would rather have interceptors, but if they're maintaining them, we're okay with that.
Excuse me, Derek.
Yes.
So it fills up and then the rest of the water goes out. That,
Goes out into the sewer, yeah, so there's a baffle, you can't see it, and then there's a pipe, and it's below the water line, but depending on how thick that grease is, it's still gonna go in there, so that's why you have to maintain that 25-25 rule. Yeah, so there are baffles and there's a pipe that's sticking below the level, water level.
So there's 25% on the bottom, so the bottom of the pan.
Well, that probably has a lot more than 5%,
But
yes,
the concept is 25% and then 25% at the top.
yeah,
So you have 50% water in the middle.
yeah, correct, yeah. At least, right?
That's the
mean, That's the
maximum,
maximum amount you want in there,
that's the
then you need to
minimum
pump it
amount
out.
of water,
minimum amount of water, maximum
maximum
amount
amount
of
of
grease.
grease.
Yeah, correct.
And then the pipe is feeding.
Pretty much, you can say in the middle, but it's a little bit more toward the top, yeah, and so.
That's a good question.
They're,
Roger, we're
yeah,
all
everyone
learning how
should be
these
clear.
things work.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, very good questions. So we're gonna see an interceptor next, and so these are typically outside, so next time you go to a restaurant, if you see two manholes outside, that's an interceptor right there. And so the one on your left here, that one needs to be pumped. The one in the middle is the newer one, so it's basically empty. You can see that's that baffle, and it's similar to a trap, so it's actually going down into the water line a little bit, so it's not sucking the top part out, because otherwise it defeats the whole purpose of greasing your line. And so this is outside again, so if you see these out there, and you'll typically see like grease stains around them and a bunch of flies, so then you know you're by the
Oh,
grease interceptor. But the good thing is,
I'm never
they're
going
outside, right?
Yeah, like,
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's easier to maintain when it's outside, it's not near your food prep area, so from a health and safety standpoint, having them out, but that's outside of our jurisdiction, but having them outside is better. So these are properly maintained traps and interceptors, so I wanna go back real quick, so you see the lasagna on the right there. If you look, this is what it should look like, so you have your grease here accumulating, and this is your effluent side. And so you're clear, you're always gonna have a little bit of layer, but again, you're not sucking from the top. And so no different than like if you have a septic tank, which I'm lucky enough to have, you'll always have that little layer on top, but even on the right side right there, that's properly maintained. It's getting to the point to where it needs to be pumped out, but your clean side is still clean effluent coming out. And then, so you brought up how do they clean it, so. Yep, they bring in a vacuum, and so this is under the sink, and they are vacuuming out the grease trap, so. In the middle is an empty one after they got done, and the other two are in progress of cleaning out the traps.
So every time the hauler comes, it ends up looking that pristine.
Yes, it's supposed to, they're supposed to completely suck them dry all the way, correct, yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
I mean, there may be a little bit of residue on the bottom, but yeah, for the most part, it should look pretty darn close to that. And then they provide a report. And then they provide a report of where it's going to as well, again, so, you know, we're not dumping it down, making this full circle, right? So enforcement compliance. That's it, it's blank, because that's why we're here today. So now we're gonna talk about the meat and the potatoes. So this is the summary of the significant code changes to FOB. There's a lot here, so please, if you have questions, stop me. Happy to answer as we go along. I'm gonna put these in front of me so I don't have to go over constantly. All right, so the first one, 5.20.050A, so this is to require all food establishments and businesses that discharge fats, oil, and grease shall have a properly sized grease interceptor, and it removes the language for a grease trap. So we're trying to get away from allowing businesses to have the grease traps. Now, we're gonna talk about here in just a second, existing businesses, but this would be for a new business that's being built, or one that changes ownership, which is another one here, that we want them to have an interceptor. The traps really, you have to maintain them on a regular basis, and if you don't, it's gonna go out in your system. They're just not designed effectively to capture enough grease. So we want to get interceptors put in.
So the concept here in reading subsection A is that if you have a trap currently operating, as long as you're not transferring ownership of the business or changing its volume of what you're passing through it, you can have that.
And
grandfathering that in.
your
But you
grandfather,
have to maintain it.
correct, yes.
So the minute the business is sold,
Yep.
change of ownership.
Yep.
The minute the use changes, both as
Correct.
to the type of use, quantity of use, is that
You go
also
from
included?
bakery to a fried chicken place. you're gonna get an interceptor.
you're gonna get an intercept.
Yeah.
And or the failure to maintain
Yep,
is the third trigger.
correct.
Okay.
Yep. So I think you nailed the rest for me, thank you here. Yeah, so the next one here is, yeah, existing.
Oh, question. So A1, so how do you define if the establishment fails to maintain its grease trap?
That's based on our source control, right? So we're gonna go out and do inspections, and so if we go out and we see that it's more than 25%. And so maybe they're 75% grease, then they're not maintaining their grease trap, right? And so our source control, they're gonna educate them and try to correct them. But if this becomes a continued issue, then they're gonna need to put in a grease interceptor.
Yeah, well, that's
So-
what I mean. How many times are you gonna go out there? 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's really right now, we're trying to do the education piece with the restaurant. So I didn't want to put in their language, you fail one time and you're not gonna get this. So if it's becoming a severe issue or it's repetitive or they're not correcting it, and we're gonna touch on that a little bit later as to how we get them to correct it, because if they don't correct it by immediately, there's other steps in place that are gonna occur. If those trigger points happen, that's when they're gonna get an interceptor. So I think if you wait a little bit more toward the end of the presentation, that's probably gonna answer your question as well, Brad, on how we're gonna trigger them to get the interceptor.
And they have to
What's
pay
the
for
cost
that.
of an interceptor? How much does an interceptor generally cost? Obviously, it depends on the size.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it really depends on the size, the location. So it could be anywhere from 5 to 10,000, or if this is a big, huge interceptor, it's gonna be a lot more.
Okay, so that's a lot for a small business. So, okay,
And the one thing to keep in mind too is that some of these share kind of like a final destination. And so what happens in new establishments and new businesses, they share an interceptor, right? And so they benefit from collectively going to the same one. But that's the new establishment. So
Dr. Smith,
Right, so the cost, I think my question answered, the cost is to the restaurant, not to MCWD.
correct, yeah.
And then you're gonna tell us how you're going to make them get the interceptor done?
the enforcement clauses
Yeah,
Enforcement.
are in this.
that,
Right,
yeah, that is the enforcement
5.2.
clause, but what triggers it is gonna come later on with, if they're not in compliance, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z.
okay,
And
that's
then
fine.
essentially after that, then we're gonna make you get interceptor.
Direct Vice President Sherman.
This might be devil's advocate, but I don't know if this happens, but what if it's like a donor shop that has a grease trap and then it changes ownership, but the new owner wants a flower shop? Is it gonna be an automatic requirement to get this?
It's not a food establishment, so no.
Okay, so it's gonna be when it changes ownership or type of use, it's only for food establishment.
Yeah, and there's other
Anybody with
language in the
grease.
actual code that says, yeah, food establishment, yeah. So, yeah, like an automotive shop, they're not gonna have a grease interceptor. They'll have an oil separator, but they're not gonna have a grease interceptor. So
Okay.
it depends on the business as well. Thank you. And well, we just touched on that one. So any food establishment that changes ownership or type again, so if it's a bakery and then goes to a place that's barbecue joint or something deep fried, that's gonna trigger a change. 5.20050C, so this adds the minimum size allowed for the grease interceptor at 750 gallon capacity. That's already in our spec or PGDR, so that is what we already require. So we're just mirroring that code. 52060 B and C. So this talks about what we chatted about earlier with the 25% rule and really the frequency of pump outs. And so they're gonna be required to pump them out at least once a quarter, or if they hit that 25% rule. So if they're hitting that 25% rule every week, which there are some that do that, they're gonna have to pump out weekly. But if they're not hitting that, they still need to maintain them as it can still go down the pipeline, get crusty, you can have other issues within the trap and interceptor, so they'll have to maintain them at least quarterly. Which is kind of the typical
Finish your
MO to
sentence.
where they should be pumping them out anyways.
Okay, so going back, Director Imamura touched on this, is talking about inspections, and I know that's in this section, subsection F. That biannually, which means twice a year, we, MCWD, send an employee to inspect.
Yep.
So we have somebody that is dedicated to this. God bless them.
Couple,
Okay.
we've been cross-training, but yes,
But then when I'm looking at, you're now covering, and this where my question leads to, is subparagraph B and C in 0.060. Which, two questions that I have here is grease traps must be, you're indicating that they have to pump it no less frequently than every 3 months.
Yep.
And at our discretion, we may require more frequent pumping. I have in my margin, number one, how do you know they're doing this every 3 months? Are they required to give us a report every 3
Yes.
months? And if they're doing it once a week because they're one of those high producers of grease, they send that report to us every week. Is that correct?
they're supposed to, and that's why we're trying to tighten this up a little bit more.
Okay,
And so right now,
Because
what
it's not tight
happens,
enough. And then,
the hauler a lot of times will submit it.
okay,
So we're putting in for the, or requesting to change the ordinance that it's the responsibility of the food establishment to gather that information and provide that documentation to the district. So every time they get a pump out, they need to submit it to the district.
so is that what this manifest means? Customers
Yes.
responsible for ensuring that all manifest
Yep.
shall be provided to the district and uploaded to the district's compliance program.
Correct.
That should at least have the word timely in there. I mean, I don't want it 6 months after they've done it.
Sure.
All pump out servicing records shall be maintained by the customer for 3 years and available upon request, but the assumption is they've sent them to us.
Correct.
Okay, then the next question I have now, I'm going back to B and C, which is where you were explaining in my question. The district in its discretion may require more frequent pumping based on the flow rates, the amount of fats, oil, grease discharged by the food establishment or business. My question is, what's the trigger? Is the trigger because they've had a spill? Is the trigger because we're monitoring how much they're sending us in their manifest? What is the trigger that enables us not to be challenged in that we're requiring more frequent pumping? What's the trigger?
I think it's a combination of all of that, right? So it's not necessarily one, so it's our inspector is going out on site. And maybe we're not getting the pump out records appropriately, or we're having issues down in the system with additional fog, and we did investigation. And they go out there and they pop the grease trap and it's not being pumped out like it is. So maybe we're getting false manifests, or maybe that weekly isn't enough and they need to be pumped out more frequently. So someone has to be enforcing this, and that's on our source control to go out there and go to the establishment, look at the actual trap and interceptor, and make sure they're complying along with what's happening actively in the collection system. So it's not a one scenario fits all. There's a magnitude of things that go into that when we are doing source control on our businesses.
Okay, and from our currently two staff members going out doing visual inspections, which they are doing biannually, so twice a year, they're gonna at least come to my business and take a look. And are they also responsible for comparing the visual of what I see versus all these manifests? How are you matching those? Is that how you are deciding that at our discretion, there should be some additional, more frequent?
So not only are they looking at the manifest and visually looking at, they're actually doing dip samples inside the source control. And so,
But only twice a year.
no, sometimes it's more frequently depending on the business. So they may go out. If the business is pumping out weekly or they're having issues, they're gonna be visiting more frequently, yeah. So,
Okay, so biannually or more often,
mhm.
and they're paying us for that time.
We're gonna get into that.
Okay. All right,
The answer is no right now, but we wanna make them pay.
So you were at B and C and I
Thank you.
asked all my questions.
Thank you. All right. D, so as requirement,
Director Imamura has a question, so let's go to Director Imamura.
You on C, so the minimum size is a 750 gallon capacity. Is that oversized for, let's say, a small business? A small restaurant?
I would say no, as that's been our standard for a long time. That's typically industry standard. So the problem with these traps underneath the sinks is they're all essentially undersized. And so you have the problem where grease is easily able to get out of the system. So 750 gallon capacity is not a large, sometimes these things go into several thousand gallon capacities.
Right. Well, some of these kitchens, which I've seen during inspections, are pretty small. So, what if they can't fit a 750 gallon capacity in their kitchen?
So good question. It doesn't go in the kitchen. So these are interceptors. So
Outside.
these go
Right.
outside. So on the sewer lateral line. And so
Well-
it's usually or in an alley. And I don't know if we've ever come across a situation we haven't been able to put an interceptor in. But yeah, there's
No, you're right, you're right. And what I meant to say, if these small places, let's say they don't have any side areas or a large back area, would they be able to, generally would fit in there?
I would say yes. It's about the size of a manhole that would go in there. So there
Okay.
should be, to get an interceptor in.
Or it should not be a permitted use of the structure.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Good question. I think I was on D, so that adds a requirement for the use of grease colors and required paperwork. And record retention for pump outs and grease measurements. We kind of just chatted about that. So the haulers need to provide the food establishments with the paperwork. They need to provide it MCWD so we can track that they're pumping out appropriately and that we can compare that with our source control measurements. And then 5.20060G, that's adding additional language on authority to inspect grease removal devices and the authority to terminate services if inspection is denied. We're not asking to go inside, at 12 PM. This is during normal business hours, but we have the right to inspect these devices. So kind of similar language that we used in the cross connection ordinance update that we did 5-6 months ago now. So kind of mirrored that. And then 5.20.062 is a new section for fees to administer the program. So President Moore, and this is what you just chatted about earlier. We currently are not charging a source control fee to our customers, and we need to be. And so at a resolution by later date, which I plan to come back within a couple months to come up with appropriate fee for our food establishments or businesses that require source control. And so we're putting that language in there that we're going to come back.
The amount is gonna be set at a later date, but the
Correct.
authority to impose fees
Yes.
is in this ordinance.
Yes.
Got it.
All right, enforcement. This is some of the stuff we were just talking about earlier, and we're gonna dive deeper into it. So 5.20.0560.056A. Many numbers here. If a food establishment is not found to be maintaining its grease trap or interceptor, the district's going to provide a first warning to the customer with 72 hours to comply. As a follow-up to that, you're probably gonna ask, well, if they get this notice, are they gonna be able to find anyone? The answer is yes. So within our sewer system management plan, and then we provide a list of grease haulers, there are a lot, and they will respond the same day to pump out. There's absolutely no reason that they cannot get someone out within 72 hours. Follow up to that, If they're still not complying after the final warning, then we'll provide them, or a first warning, we'll provide them a final 24-hour notice to comply. So this is similar to the cross connection, again, like what we did, we gave them a first warning to comply, and then you have a second final. And then C, if they still don't comply within that final notice, we may terminate the water service to the premise. And so no water, no business, they're gonna comply with the pump out, right? We are trying to, this is a serious issue that can happen in the wastewater collection system, and we need to remedy it immediately. So, you know, we talked about fines. Yeah, you may deter someone like conservation, and maybe I won't water, but this one, a fine of $100 or $1,000, they have to be set reasonably. That may deter some, but most of them may say, oh, I'm still gonna put it down there. So if we go the route of, we're gonna terminate your water service, they are gonna pump these out. And so that is the final straw. We do a lot of PR with these, the same thing with the cross connection, right? It gets down to the point that we are gonna terminate service a lot of times, that we go out, talk to the business owners and say, hey, this is why you need to comply, this is why it's important, this is what needs to be done. And so it's not just we hang a door tag up, we don't talk, hey, we're not gonna tell you anything, and then we go shut the water off. There is so much connection that are done with these food establishments on a regular basis, so they know we're coming and they know what the issue is, and they
And
know
they
they
had
need to
4
comply.
days to fix it.
Correct, yeah. And I do want to point out a lot of them are good, so they're not all habitual.
Is that even during like a holiday week as well, or are you just going by just regular business?
It would be our business days, yeah. And then, so D, if they still don't comply and they're still putting grease down, then we're gonna go terminate their sewer service to the premise. So that we really up the ante on this.
How do you do that?
So that's a tricky one. So we actually go to the parcel, the premise line, and we will, or the main, and we're gonna dig it up, and we're actually gonna sever it, and we're gonna cap it off.
Oh my gosh.
And it's very labor intensive, and it's a last resort. And again, this is PR to the customer, like, hey, this is gonna cost you X amount of money if we go out and do that. If you pump this, you know, you're gonna have a huge savings. We don't wanna go down this route, right? And we've done all the PR up into that point, but this is in case all else fails, that's what we're gonna do. So what happens if we do that? Well, the customer is gonna be responsible for all disconnection, reconnection fees associated with any disconnection services. There's a disconnection of a water service, it's not gonna be as expensive. The disconnection of a sewer service, it's gonna be a lot more expensive. Again, it goes back to the PR with these customers. We really work with them to avoid having to do these things.
Just a minute,
Oh, yes,
Mr. Masuda?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. What happens if they're just renting the premises? I mean, is there any notice given to the landlord that?
yeah, it should be, well, it's gonna be the tenant and the owner. So we have that information in our system. And so, but
No, that's an interesting question because none of that is mentioned in here.
That's what I was gonna ask.
This,
It says the
owner.
tenant, the district customers adequate grease trap, debris, the customer required to reimburse us. And I think it goes back to Director Imamura's question when he was talking about if they need to put an interceptor. Obviously, the tenant's going to have to get landlord approval. The landlord's going to be involved in that.
yeah, but the tenant, it's gonna be a tenant improvement, so.
If that's what the lease says, yes. So, but the landlord has no responsibility to us. The question that I think, our council is asking is, if in fact we're gonna shut off the water or the sewer, do we give notice to the landlord?
I would say that goes to the tenant if we're shutting off the water.
Just the tenant?
but if you're gonna sever the sewer line.
That's assuming that the lateral impacts only that sole unit in a multiplex unit. That's part of the question. Yeah. Have you, right after Director Smith, right after Director Imamura. Director Imamura?
Oh, thank you. So, what's, the effect of, okay, so you cap off the sewer line and the occupants still use their toilet and everything. What happens? It backs up?
Yeah, it's gonna back up, and so at that point, we'd also let the county know that they've been disconnected, and so the county didn't get involved, county health.
The county is required to red tag the residents as soon as it doesn't have water or sewer, correct?
Right. So you informed them that they shouldn't be using any of their water and sewer facilities and to prevent any damage. Is that what you do?
Well, it's pretty common sense.
Yeah, so yeah, if we're gonna shut off water prior to that, right, so we're giving them a 3-day notice and a day notice to say, hey, look, we need to pump out your interceptor or your grease trap because you're causing issues to the sewer system. And so by shutting that off, we are eliminating that grease or fog from going down the line into our sewer system causing issues. And causing their own viral issues, but obviously they don't care about that portion of it.
So we'll have to review the owner things more relevant at this point.
Yeah, I'll look, I mean, we did this with
Okay.
cross connection, I don't recall the exact language, but we put in there. Either owner or tenant was interchangeable, we have shut offs and all that, but yeah, we can look at that.
Director Smith?
Thank you. So in cases where, which we have some in Marina now, you have residential right next to your restaurant establishment. And they share the same back alleyways, they share the same everything. So you're digging into where the sewer line is to shut it off or what have you. How is that going to affect then? I mean, that seems like it would put homeowners that live right next to that establishment in not a good light.
Sure, it's definitely gonna put a burden on them, you know, and this is probably a 1% scenario that may happen, but. You know, the fact of it is that they're not complying, and so we have to do something
Right,
to stop it, and so. The goal is with the water shut off, that's gonna prevent them from putting sewage down there, but if they're, you know, stealing water or whatever they're doing. They're still dumping grease in, there has to be another layer to prevent that from going down the system.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's a tough one to swallow, right? And so an entity I used to work for, if you didn't pay your water bill after a certain amount of time, we capped your sewer line. And we'd actually dig it up at the main and cap your sewer line. So that was we didn't do it frequently, but if you were habitual for long enough and we've been trying to correct you for, I mean, this happened probably, you had to go about 6 months, but we would finally go out there and dig it. And the next day, you know, they would pay the water bill. But that's the last thing as an entity that you want to go out and do is have to cap a sewer line, because it's a lot of labor involved. to do
Right,
that.
I mean, that's gonna be obviously the worst case scenario, but you said the 1%, just assume that 1% happens. What are you gonna do to protect then your other ratepayers that are around that area?
Well, it should not impact
No,
their
I mean-
sewer discharge. The inconvenience is there's gonna be a truck and
Right.
people there doing the construction.
Mhm.
I'm more concerned that if you get to that point. I'm much more concerned about how do you collect the cost? And they're gonna run into bankruptcy court because they're already behind in everything else. So I don't wanna ever go there if we don't have
Yeah, I
to,
don't either.
because collecting it from some business owners can be very difficult. No, Mr. Masuda had a question.
When you shut off the water, don't you have to notify public health or something?
Yeah, so if
you're
the establishment, yeah,
Yeah.
we do notify, and it's the same thing with cross connection, right? So if they don't test their backflow, again, we're talking to people over and over again, and we say, hey, just so you know, we have to notify county health. You know, they're gonna come out, or we have to notify if it's the fire system, we gotta notify the fire department, you're probably gonna have to have a fire watch. So, you know, we do that, and that triggers them often. Almost all the time to go out and test their device, and the same thing with this is. You have to have rules and things in play to have enforcement to. convince them oftentimes to do the right thing and comply.
So the question then that begs is that when we're doing enforcement and you're giving them the 72-hour warning, would the warning include the fact that it's going to be reported, the 72 hours wouldn't, the 96 hours, the 24 hours? But I think you might want to include it in all the warnings, is that should this not be taken care of, that county health will be notified.
Oh, definitely,
I think
yeah.
that should be in the warning.
In the letter, yeah, we will.
Yeah,
supply
I want to be
letters
sure
too.
that's,
Yeah,
because that will be a huge deterrent, that they're not only in our system, but they're in the county health
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
And I have more hurdles to clear to reopen the doors.
yeah, and these are one-offs from Cross Connection, right? Because Cross Connection, they have to test the device every year and blah, 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 where this is typically they're compliant, and then we go out and then we find that they're not compliant. And we're at that point, we're already doing a lot of PR with that customer. And so, yeah, we will have in that sheet for the notification of disconnect, not only the date and time, but X, Y, and Z will happen. Yeah. We're definitely trying to deter them to just pump out their grease and maintain a grease interceptor and trap.
Okay.
Yeah, here. Correct, yeah. Revised previous license, space trap. Okay, so then. That goes back to the one at the very beginning of the slide, so, if they're not maintaining it, so we're giving these notifications, we're shutting water off, or disconnecting sewer maybe. That's gonna trigger them, they need to put in an interceptor. We've already had that language in there. Vaguely, we're just trying to tighten it up a little bit. So if we're gonna shut your water off, or we're gonna disconnect your sewer, at that point, you're habitual and you're gonna need to put an interceptor in.
So even if we're not turning off their water, you just hit level B, that you've not complied with the initial first warning, even if we can require an interceptor.
Yeah, they're not maintaining the grease trap that's required.
Okay, that's important.
And then 520056G, which I think is the last one. Adds language to recover any costs associated with a sewer spill caused by a customer's inadequate maintenance of their grease trap or interceptor. The customer shall be responsible for all costs associated with cleaning the spill, including equipment, labor, materials, as well as any regulatory fine or attorney fees resulting from the spill. So if we know the spill is coming from ABC Bakery, which I hope that's not a real name, but baking one up, and you cause a spill, we can recoup our costs, and that's what this is for. If we get a fine from the state, we're gonna come after you to recoup the costs. And
But that includes the cost. It's not just a fine from the state. It's not fines only, it's the cost of correcting the issue.
yes, the equipment, material, labor. So our time to go out there, clean up the spill, correct whatever was wrong. We're gonna charge for all that and recoup those costs.
And I have a question on that then, so hypothetically, if that bakery you mentioned is a tenant. And then they are facing bankruptcy because they just can't pay all this, then does that go to the owner of that building if they were a tenant? No, it would just be a loss, it would just be original. If we can.
And we're just legal law.
So, yeah, so we're changing how, because the water tenants are a habitual problem here, and so. The water code prevents us from taking that debt and putting against the owner unless the owner signs the tenant agreement. And so I'm thinking that we're gonna wanna do the same thing in this space, is that, yes, you can come in, that's fine, you're our customer, but your landlord is gonna sign. Because if we're gonna go out and cut open somebody's lateral, we're not cutting open the customer's lateral, we're cutting open the owner's lateral, and that's a problem. Right?
Because the tenant leaves and the
Well,
owner can't rent the space till he pays the $14,000 to reconnect the sewer line.
to open it up, but we don't have a legal right to go
Well,
in
we
and cut
need-
into somebody's private property. So there's a bigger problem there.
Oh, so it's both access.
Yeah, so I think. you know,
Oh, so this needs to be,
Well, we just need to have the owner inside this control.
But we own the Y portion, and so we can sever it there.
Sure, no, I'm not saying that there aren't, if we could pig the line, so nobody would even know that we were there. But, we can put a little small inflatable bladder up into the lateral and inflate it and no one
nothing
can get to it.
happens.
So, but I think that in terms of the account, we need to make sure that the owners as well as the customers are held liable inside that agreement. And then. just
Yeah,
real
and the
quick-
diff- and the,
Yeah.
excuse me, and the difference being that this is not for the water
Correct.
service, this is
For the
for
sewer.
health and safety for the sewer.
Good catch.
Are we allowed to?
Well, yeah, so Leo, do you know where to add that language in? We can probably need to add that in tonight, correct?
Otherwise, we bring them back.
I think it's probably best to bring it back.
I would, as
Yeah.
a director, would much prefer to have it brought back, have it considered by legal counsel and address that issue, the broader perspective.
Yeah.
Given the legal issues that presents and the ability to collect what could be significant expenses.
Yeah, can I say something?
Director Smith?
Thank you. As an owner of a commercial property myself, if I had a tenant that was a restaurant or bakery, which I did have a bakery at the property I own, and if I was not notified by the water district, that's my property. If my tenant was not doing that, I'd want to know at the beginning, not at the end, when you're gonna finally turn off the water or whatever. So I think out of that property owner needs to also be aware of what's going on, because they might have their own tenant agreement, which I did with my commercial tenant, is you have to maintain this, you have to take care of this. So I think that, I don't know, I haven't seen that verbiage in here, so I think that from the beginning stages where you're gonna be warnings, what have you, I think that there's warnings to be for that as well.
Vice President Shining.
Yeah, could I ask, do you know off the top of your head, is that an occurrence, a common occurrence in our area where we have an owner-tenant situation for these commercial kitchens?
I don't know what the breakdown is off the top of my head. I don't even want to try to.
But just think of every restaurant that's in a shopping mall,
Okay.
a shopping strip, which is most of them in Marina.
We,
They're not freestanding buildings.
That's right,
They're
that's
mostly, there's a property owner, and for me, I'm just hearing about, I'm hearing this, and as a commercial property owner, I'd be mortified, I'd be livid if I didn't get a notice from the water district that this was going on. Just like if you're a landlord for a home and the neighbors come to you and say, you've got this going on, and you had no idea those things were going on, you'd want to know as a property owner, so.
So I think the direction that is going here is when is it appropriate to include the landlord in this ordinance for notice, for ability to have access, for the ability to collect? And I think our staff and our attorney understand that direction. They're going to look at it and evaluate when it would be appropriate. Director Imamura?
Yeah, just, whenever you start developing your procedures manual, however this turns out, that, my, suggestion is that you engage the public health department, the environmental health department, if it involves a food facility. Because, I think if you engage them, that's just another enforcement arm, because they can pull the food permit. So you pull a food permit, you can't even operate, so. Anyway, that's just my suggestion. So get them involved as early as possible.
Yeah, and we do, that's a good question or a good statement. We do get the health department involved in scenarios like that. And we do just a similar cross connection if we're gonna shut down water to business. we let the tenant know and the owner know on that. I mean, these are one-off scenarios, right? We don't, not a residence. We're
No,
going over to
commercial.
Kohl's to shut the water off. That becomes an issue, right? And so we do outreach beyond just delivering a door tag saying we're gonna shut the water off. So we would do the same thing on sewer as well, but. So then I guess this we're gonna table until next month, correct? Yeah. We'll bring you back some clarifying language on the ownership tenant part, and I will adjust the warning at the first warning for the homeowner to be notified. Oh,
Glenn,
sorry. Yes.
Define customer, define owner.
okay, so our action item 8A, we are tabling it. Before we leave this item, I am inviting the public if they wish to comment. I know we've had a big discussion. If you wish to comment on this matter, I invite you to do so now. I don't see any hands coming up, so we will move on from item 8A, and we are now on item 8B, which is to consider. We just did that.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Thanks, Derek.
Yes, good for you.
So now we are moving on to informational items. And, thank you very much. Jeff.
Yes. you're welcome.
And general manager's report.
Good evening, board, staff, members of the public. First, congratulations on the first day of fall. I'm pleased to report that the district, as well as its partner organizations, the City of Marina and Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, submitted their applications for rehearing to the PUC for decision 25-08-006, which is the phase 2 supply and demand analysis. This reopens the decision and so removes it from compliance with the CalAm CDP with the Coastal Commission. So that one special condition, which was handled, is now reopened and not handled anymore. Also today, the district, the city, and the water management district submitted a motion of stay up for the decision, citing CalAm's recent PR blasts, letting the world know that they intended to move the project forward, even though it didn't comply with the CPC and other regulatory events. I've had the pleasure of meeting with a number of organizations. So I've met with the State Water Resources Control Board, the Central Coast Regional Water Quality Board, and the Coastal Commission regarding phase 2 and other items. And then I've also met with County Supervisors Daniels and Church to discuss how the district's interacting on a number of issues. Recently had the pleasure of presenting the district in total to the Cannery Road Sunrise Rotary. That was quite fun. We've had meetings with the general manager, or I've had meetings, not the we. Meetings with Catcherell CSD's GM, as well as the City of Seaside's general manager, or general manager? No,
City manager.
City manager, in hopes that we can start building some communication, which has successfully transmitted the parcels from Bay and Blackwood. Patrick and I are engaged in annexation meetings with all parties as we move towards our first annex, our first major annex since the 2018. 22, but no, major annexation. Is the last 19. So this is bringing the parcels in that the district currently serves that are outside the district, but also has infrastructure on them. Apparently, when we tried to do the whole corridor thing, things got lost in the shuffle. And so all we're trying to do is annex those parcels that are currently receiving service, so that should the district not declare a shortage, that we don't have to cut them off. And so we're just meeting with all the parties to let them know what we're doing. This is no cost to the party. It changes no tax. It doesn't change anything. All it does is protect them inside the blanket of the district. And then
And those parcels are they all former corridor parcels? Are they located north of the city? They're everywhere. Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
Yeah, and then lastly, I hope everybody enjoyed CSDA. I did, learned a lot about AI, got even more Yeah, freaked out. And a number of, kind of upper management, trainings that I thought were really helpful. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. That was powerful.
Thank you. Next, we're going to go to committee and board liaison reports. We start with the executive committee. Vice President Schreiner.
It's a simple agenda review for tonight and, not much else on the agenda.
I would concur. The community outreach and personnel committee, Brad or directors.
Yes, Director Smith will give a report on our meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so we had a really good meeting and we went over quite a few things, outreach committee with, REM and, Roush Communications. I brought up the fact that we've had a lot of people complaining about thinking that their water bill keeps going up when they're not using any water. So I think that people need to have some type of a breakdown on their water bill. I asked direct REM to maybe see about putting up a video on the website, something maybe you guys could do to show like a mock bill that says this is, the water's this, but breaking down the actual service part, right? Like, so this much of this goes to bringing the water to your house. This much goes to, we have to process all this. So I think that the breakdown of the bill would really help the ratepayers to understand what they're actually paying for, and it's not just water. The other thing that Director Amora brought up was the homes being used in some of the communication outreach things that are going on the internet are not homes in our district. So they thought maybe using examples for water conservation, we're talking about landscaping, homes that had, the conserve like water conservation landscaping that are in our district. So it would be better than using homes that are in Southern California, which I think some of them were.
We're not gonna use stock photos.
Or stock photos, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought the implication was we were sending notices to Southern California. No, but we were using
A lot of-
photos.
I think I said the conservation landscaping bulletins that have been going out in Facebook and email and next door, they're stock photos of homes that aren't in our district. So it's samples of landscaping. So there were water conservation landscaping samples, right? So it would be nice to use homes that are actually in our district of that type of water conservation landscaping instead of stock photos. Better word, stock photos.
Well, then I'm gonna object to stock photos of our customer service reps.
I think in general,
I think it's
a good
best if we
point.
don't use them.
Yeah, and so, there's some legal stuff we have to get through to get to start taking pictures of people's houses, but I think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
We'll
that's,
start with it.
yeah, okay. And that was all I think I remember I was talking about. Oh, we did have events that there are more events that Paul is going to, so that's probably when you were talking about the budget. So we've had we did the
Community night out.
yes, thank you. Community night out. Sorry, I'm really tired. I've only had 4 hours sleep. Community night out, and then we had a couple others. We've got more that he's done this month. An art show in Marina, and then also there's a car one here locally that he'll be at. So those will be obviously for the next meeting that we'll get caught up on that. But yeah, so we're trying to get him out. I think there's more events for him to do. So anything else that I brought?
That's it. You got it.
Good work. Thank you. Thank you, Director and Memora also. Resource and Groundwater Sustainability Committee. We met, Director Moore and Director Morton, myself are the 2 committee members. We met on September 2nd for the hearing, the meeting focused on a closed session. And that was the only thing on the agenda, and there was no reportable action. M1 Water Board Member Liaison, he's not
Yeah,
present.
Madam President, we have a written, report out. We'll provide that to the board.
Okay, you don't want to read it? Is it,
I can try and pull it up and make.
oh, no, it's fine. If you're gonna distribute it to the board, would you also make sure it's just attached to? Yes,
We'll attach it to the minutes.
minutes. Okay, just to make it accessible for the public. Thank you. Okay, so those are all the committees that we have. Board member request for future agenda items. Director Imamura, any request?
None for me, thank you.
Director Smith? None for me, thank you. Vice President Sherman? Okay, so at this point, there's no request made. We're now moving to director comments. Director Imamura, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you. I want to have a shout out and thank you to Paula and to Tio for setting up the equipment here so I can participate in tonight's meeting. And also to Mary and Patrick and Derek for their great presentations. It made it a little bit more understandable. Not only, having to read it, but it's also good to have that presentation. And again, I know we don't do it a lot, but Roger, you're always appreciated. Just want to say thank you to our legal counsel. Hopefully you're gonna keep our legal fees low and our lawsuits very sparse, so we don't get into those situations, but we will if we have to. And also to our general manager, Rem, thank you so much for keeping the district running. Really appreciate that, and also my fellow board members, thank you.
Thank you, Director Imamura. Director Smith?
Just thank you, everybody, for your hard work and thanks for the presentations.
Vice President Shriner?
Congratulations again for the second award on the financial reporting for the budget. I really appreciate that, and I think that CSDA was very productive. I found that conference to be full of some useful information. I especially like the legislative updates when I go, and it's a lot to absorb. So I'm glad other people were there. It's nice to see the district having a number of us being trained in a highly professional manner, and the number of people that are in that conference, I think it was 700, there's a lot of people from all over California. And I really appreciate everybody that is taking that training seriously and back into their own districts to do even a better job for the public. So that was nice to see. And then also, yeah, happy fall. Can't believe we're already 2025 first day of the fall season. This year has whizzed by.
So my comments, I'm sorry it's fall. I'm not ready for summer to be over. This is not good. It's gonna be daylight savings time, it's gonna be gone. That is not good. So when I let you out at 8:20 a month ago, it was still sunlight and now it's dark. That is really bothersome to me. I'm sharing that. That's my comments. I've already given my comments with regard to the success that you as our team are all leading MCWD. I reiterate that. I heartfelt, and I think you're hearing that from our board, that it is a pleasure to serve on this board when the organization is functioning so well, so profitably, and so much for the best of our customers and of our community and our broader community, not just those with whom we serve, to whom we serve. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we are now adjourned. Our next meeting is Monday, October 20th at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, good evening.